Recently, you may have seen the world skydiving record was broken by Dorothy from Chicago at the age of 104. What are you going to be doing at 104? Or even at 90? With current rates of longevity, you'll be surprised you may live longer than you expect to. Over 50, so what? Welcome to the show. I'm Carol O'Halloran. To keep you living a longer, healthier life, we chat with Dr. John Amarino, cardiologist, about heart failure and how, by getting your heart checked, you can actually prevent strokes. 5-minute fitness, get ready to move and have some fun. Lastly, we meet some of our Filipino community having a fun day out with traditional food, music and dance. It's really important for those of us over 50 to have a greater understanding of heart failure, its diagnosis, prevention and treatment. By being diagnosed early, you can prevent advanced heart failure. And we are speaking with an expert himself, the Director of the Heart Failure Program at University Hospital Geelong, Dr. John Amarino. Welcome to Over 50 So What, John?
Thank you for having me here.
I'm very excited to have you here because you're such an expert in the field of cardiology to start with. We're talking about heart failure. Now, most of the people watching won't even know what a cardiologist is. You know, what do you do?
Well, I'm a cardiologist who basically has interest in what we call heart failure and cardiac irregular heartbeats. Basically, a cardiologist really deals with any issues related to the heart and the circulation. And so we see people with heart attacks, with heart failure, with irregular heartbeats, with blackouts, and if they're cardiac cause, we try and sort out what the cause is and what we can do about it.
Can you tell us what is heart failure?
Heart failure is the inability of the heart to pump enough blood to keep the organs in the body functioning properly. So it could be from a weak heart where you get doesn't have enough strength to pump the blood around, or a stiff heart where the heart can't fill up with blood, so it can't get into the circulation.
I think a lot of people watching will be familiar with someone having a heart attack, and that's it. It's a clot that's caused their heart to stop. But there's so many more things that happen to the heart. Can you run us through some of those other things?
Sure. Well, look, heart failure in particular is the most common cause is having a big heart attack and causing damage to the heart muscle, and then we try and repair that and to stop it getting worse over time. But there's many other problems you can get from coronary disease. You can get chest pains that limit your activity. You can get irregular heartbeats. You can get blood clots in the heart that can break away and cause a stroke. So having a heart attack is a really pretty serious condition.
So tell us about heart valve disease. What's that all about?
Okay, so we've got 4 valves in our heart, and basically they control the flow of blood from the upper and the lower chambers to the heart, and from the lower chambers of the heart out into the body. And the valves can be sometimes damaged. They can get diseases like rheumatic fever, which was very common 50, 100 years ago, caused generally by a strep sore throat. It's very uncommon in our population now, but unfortunately in the indigenous populations in the Northern Territory, it's making a recurrence. But basically what happens, your valves in the heart either become stiff and narrow so that the heart has to work harder to pump the blood through it, or they become floppy and loose and leaky. So the heart has to, again, pump much harder to maintain the circulation. So those diseases of heart valves get more common as we get older, particularly one called aortic stenosis, which is basically the outlet valve of the heart wearing out, and it's a really common problem in people as they get older, because it's just some people the hips wear out, other people the heart valves wear out.
What about atrial fibrillation?
Sure. So atrial fibrillation is a really, again, very common problem as people get older. About 5% of people in their 60s have fibrillation, about 10% in their 70s, about 20% in their 80s.
Oh,
and it's just like the wiring in the heart wearing out.
Okay.
And there's 2 problems with atrial fibrillation. The first is that it doesn't allow the heart to pump properly, so it's inefficient. And what I say to patients, imagine if you had an 8-cylinder car and you try and run it on 6, that's what happens when you go into AF. It doesn't perform as well as it should. The second and bigger issue is that a lot of people are completely unaware of when they're in atrial fibrillation, and the first time they know they've got it is when they have a stroke. And so obviously we've missed the boat by then, because the atrial fibrillation in the elderly, it accounts for about 25% of strokes. And if you pick it up early and you put people on blood thinning medication, you can prevent strokes. So that's why there's a huge impetus to diagnose atrial fibrillation in older people, to put them on appropriate therapy to prevent them developing a stroke, and heart failure, if it's untreated, is also a complication.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing to learn more about my heart, your heart, everybody's heart, and it's how important it is to catch it early, because you can live a quality life once you catch it early.
Yeah, very much so. We can get onto it early, treat it, diagnose, treat early. You stop disease progression, and people are much healthier and have a much better quality of life if we get onto things early.
Heart failure is a long-term condition that affects an estimated 500,000 Australians. It is serious, and it's the #1 cause of hospitalisation in people over the age of 65. But with early diagnosis, treatment and lifestyle changes, a person with heart failure can reduce their risk of hospitalisation and improve their quality of life.
A lot of people watching the show, you know, they'll be over 50, because the show's targeting over 50.
Yes.
But a lot of them, they'll be very doubtful that a single person hasn't been exposed to someone with a heart condition. And they may be looking after people. People watching today may be looking after their elderly parents in their 80s or 90s. And I think everyone would have been touched by it at some point.
That's exactly right. It's a leading cause of death and leading cause of hospitalisation in Australia. As you say, we're all touched by it somehow. I think the thing is that most of us think it's not going to happen to us. And what I'm seeing more and more is even the younger, the 50-year-old, fairly fit and healthy person that are still dying of a heart attack, once again because they haven't had their heart checked. And so there are different causes. So I think it's really important that we are mindful of our heart, and once again to go and get your heart checked.
So the Understanding Failure Heart Guide is one thing. Can you tell us about some of your products and services?
So obviously we run the awareness weeks, and again that's all about raising awareness of the different types of heart conditions that exist, and because there are conditions like heart failure, like atrial fibrillation, which is an arrhythmia, and heart valve disease that people don't know about. So it's a big passion of ours to raise awareness, encourage early diagnosis and treatment to these conditions. But once patients are diagnosed, then we offer peer support and education, and that's also really important. And we connect patients who have a similar condition so that they don't feel so isolated and they can share their experience.
Yeah. So if someone's watching right this minute and they're over 50, what would you say to them about the importance of being proactive with their heart health?
Look, simply by going to your GP and asking for a heart check will save your life. I think it's as simple as that.
Thanks for watching our TV show. Be sure to hit subscribe, and then you'll never miss an episode. Jump on Facebook, join our group, get in on the fun, fitness, wellness and inspiration. I'm Carol, over 50. So what?